Hello, everyone. This is David Goldberg with Edge Studio, and this is another fantastic episode of Home Studio Show and Tell. And today we have two amazing voice actors. I am super excited to see inside their studio. Everyone on this call should be super excited to see inside their studio because these two guys work a lot, a whole lot. And I'm excited for them to tell us exactly what they do. So let's start with Greg, who Greg and I have had some conversations even over the last few days about some stuff. And Greg just sent me videos, really beautiful videos of some work that we hired him for. Great stuff. Oh my goodness. Yeah, Greg, those videos look great.
Thanks.
The music too. Oh, so good. You sound so good on them. Greg, tell us about you. Just briefly, how you got into voiceover and where have we heard you? What kind of work do you do?
Well, I came into voiceover through the door marked radio. I got my I, I got my first job in radio when I was 15. It was like, Mom, will you take me to work? And so I worked summers, 2 summers at radio stations in a small town called San Angelo, Texas. And then I went off to college at the University of Texas and got to be on the original air staff for KLBJ FM. I worked at a legendary top 40 in that market too, and then went to the album station KLOL in Houston, and eventually got out of radio, I thought, in 1982. But in 1986, I built an FM station from the ground up. So I was an owner for 13 years and got out of radio completely in 1999, and then didn't get into voiceover until 2010. So there's like, what, 11 years that I went without getting behind a mic, and just kind of did it part time up until about 2 or 3 years ago when I went full time when I left the corporate world. And my clients, you probably haven't heard me because a lot of my work is IVR and corporate work. But some names you'd recognize would include Verizon, CSX Railways, the New York Red Bulls soccer team, um, vice grips, the tools that you get, Bobcat equipment. Those are some of the names that I've done that people would recognize. But most of the stuff I do, oddly enough, is IVR, which really surprises me because I thought my voice was too deep for IVR. Most of the IVR messages you hear, it's some young, perky sounding female, and I'm obviously not any of that. But the company that I work with, they've got clients who want me on their phone. So here we go.
Very cool. Greg, thank you for that. Chris, tell us about you.
Yeah, so I'm an 11th year voice actor full time. I came from the theater door into voice acting. I got a BFA in musical theater. And straight out of school, though, I always knew I wanted to be a voice actor. I thought I was going to hybridize that more with theater than I ended up doing. I quickly started into video games and audiobook, then migrated to commercials. Worked in commercials for a number of years, and then made the transition around 2020, 2021 into the anime and AAA video game world.
Ooh.
And so that became, prior to the current, SAG-AFTRA strike, was my bread and butter. And then when the strike happened, I pivoted into promo and trailer work. So I currently can be heard as the voice of UFC Fight Night. I did the 2024 season, and I'm on until the 2026 season, currently contracted. I'm one of the voices of the NFL, of the NHL, and the NCAA football. So it's been a wonderful ride, full of a lot of flexibility and reimagining myself and staying really agile in different genre to genre work. But I'm really grateful for it and wouldn't trade it for anything.
Now, Chris, I do have a question. I don't know the field at all. What is a AAA video game? I don't know anything about.
Yeah. Yeah, so there's video game market is a multi-billion dollar industry, lots of different levels of
Mhm.
creation, right? They could be indie games, they could be large studio games. A large studio game would be made by someone like Electronic Arts, or
Mhm.
WB, or Insomniac, these different teams, Bethesda. And a AAA, to my understanding, is when it crests that $60 million investment mark in the game. So that just means it usually is used to denote the size of the team working on it and the size of exposure that the game's going to get marketing wise. Yeah. Great question.
Here's something I've never asked a voice actor to do on a home studio show and tell. And it may throw you off your game, but you guys are both so pro that I'm going for it. Can we all hear a typical line that you would read? Greg, perhaps that's an IVR. Chris, perhaps that's a promo or a line from a football game. Chris,
Yeah.
let's hear something. Chris, when you read a script, right? And
Yeah.
I'm sorry, Greg, when you read an IVR script, let me start with you, Greg.
Yeah.
Let's hear your voice when you say, thank you for calling the company, press one for this, or let's hear what that sounds like. What's a typical line for you?
Yeah. Typically, they want unaccented. Occasionally, they will ask me for a Texas accent for the clients that are here in Texas. But typically, it's like, welcome to XYZ Company. For sales, press 1. For service, press 2. For billing, press 3. That kind of thing is typically what I do.
I know you.
Yeah. Greg may be the person out there who more people swear at the phone on. I've been on hold before for various companies, and my wife or even my kids will say, like, oh, I hate those systems. And I'll say, that's voiceover work. That's work
Right.
for our business. Like, keep it
Those are my
coming.
friends.
Yes, absolutely. Chris, let's hear a typical line from you from a promo and or from a game.
Yeah. I could do the ending of one of the Fight Night intros, as there are those 2-minute intros to the main card of UFC Fight Night every week. Live from the UFC Apex in Las Vegas, Nevada, it's UFC Fight Night, and it starts right now.
Oh, I love it.
Cool.
Yeah, neither of you are coming off like what Greg said about the typical IVR voice.
Yeah.
Those are some strong voices. Love them. So great. Let's see inside your studios. Everyone, we're going to ask Greg and Chris to take their phone and iPad, which they're on, flip over the camera, and let's see inside your studios. Chris, you're up first here. Let's take a look. So we're looking at your keyboard. Can you, Chris, step?
Yeah.
I'd love to see your whole space here. Can you
Yeah.
step back a little bit? Let's start as far back as you
Sure,
can
I'll
go.
step out the door. Yeah.
Oh yeah. Let's even see the outside of your door. What does that door look like?
For sure. It's
When
the
you go to
entrance
work,
to
what do you walk in?
Yeah,
Okay,
so I
it looks
walked
like
past some art, and it's the entrance to a walk-in closet. It's a 4 foot by 4 foot by 10 foot closet. The door is a producer's choice blanket. It's on a swag hook here that I undo and suture up on hooks in here that I can show you to secure it.
and what's up in
Yeah.
your upper left corner? Bass trap?
That's yeah, just a bass trap there. And I can step out to show the different padding that I have. I have the 4 foot by 2 foot panels that Mike Delgadio over at Booth Junkie shows you how to make on YouTube. I have those all around. I have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9. I have 11 of them all around the space. They're 4 inches thick of fiberglass wrapped in burlap and wired into the walls. I have 2 rock wool panels from ATS Acoustics on the ceiling. Those are 4 inches thick of rock wool with wood framing so that they'll secure to the ceiling on Z clamps. So that's my padding.
Before we go further, Chris, let's get a look at Greg's studio. Greg, can you also
Great.
start from your outside? Oh, you are already
sure.
great. The studio, I like the sign. Very fun.
Yeah. Can you hear me okay now?
Yes, we can.
Okay, great. Yeah. That sign, I saw an ad for that on Facebook and I asked for it for Christmas. And so that was my Christmas present. So we'll move on into the studio. I'll take you in here and show you the workspace first. Back up a little bit. There's my workspace. Those are Focal monitors, the Alpha 50s. I use a ID14 interface and a Mac Mini for my computer. And I switched to Apple from using Windows since the 80s, and I'll never go back. It has been just wonderful. I won't go into all the details, but it has been just really wonderful. And then the booth itself, I have an actual booth. It's a vocal booth, and it is a double walled, 5-sided vocal booth, which has no parallel walls except for the ceiling and the floor are parallel. So I still get some resonance there. But the one thing I did want to show in here that makes my situation unique is, I'm in Texas, and in San Antonio in the summertime, we're looking at 100, 105, 108, and it's humid to boot. And you will cook yourself to bits in that booth without any air conditioning. And just getting a fan with the room air and pumping it into the booth is not enough. So what I did was I went and I tapped into the air conditioner vent on the ceiling. See how I built a little box up there and stuck it in? And so it's got a part of it blows into the room and the other part blows down that tube into a fan that I've got a motor control on, that I can control the speed of the fan so it doesn't blow so hard that it makes noise. And then it goes on down here and into the bottom of the booth right there. And that keeps me cool. The only other option would be to try to use the room air, but in order to do that, I'd have to keep the house at like 68 degrees, and nobody can afford that electric bill, So the booth itself, this I think is really cute. You see right here, this is a remote control, and you can get one of these from Lowe's or Home Depot. And it controls a power strip remotely. And as you can see, the lights to the booth are now on, and it also turns on that fan that I was talking about. And then
That fan is
inside,
great.
I'm sorry?
But before you go on, Chris,
Yes.
let's jump back to your studio for a second. So, Chris, you're in a one room, right? You're recording in the same room in which you edit and everything. Is that correct?
Mm-hmm.
Okay. You said your space, Chris, is 4 by 4 by 10.
Mm-hmm.
Okay. So, assuming that the 10 is the height, that's a really high ceiling, which is terrific.
Yeah.
4 by
Yeah.
4 is on the smaller side, but it
It
looks really
certainly is.
spacious the way you've laid it out. It looks really very spacious.
Thank you. Yeah, this sort of L bracket desk is it fills the whole space, but it does keep everything off of my lap, and tidy on the wall. And yeah, I don't have a lot of room to wheel about in the Herman Miller, but when I'm in the control center, it feels good. We all know that we don't want a booth to be too roomy. As Greg was talking about, you don't want resonance and things like that. But yeah, I like it. I have no complaints about it. I don't ever feel claustrophobic in it. It's cozy.
What about air for you?
I use the Vornado. I really like the Vornado because they're really quiet. I can keep it on setting one if I'm doing auditions with noise canceling. I can even keep the fan on. I would close the curtain just like I demonstrated earlier and just drape that over the top of the Vornado, a poor man's baffle box. I'm really jealous of Greg's ingenuity there. uh but yeah, and as people I think have said in the past too, sans having a baffle box arrangement like Greg does, like any booth is going to heat up. But yeah, it tends to be pretty decent in there. I think the another factor of the temperature of my booth is that it is lined with fiberglass insulation, right? So whatever temperature I put off, it can kind of create a bit of a kiln situation if I don't have active air going in.
Chris, tell us about the length of your typical recording. Are they short?
So I did a game yesterday and that was 3 hours. Those can be 3 to 4 hours with 5 minute break at every hour interval. If I'm working UFC, we can sometimes knock it out in 12 minutes or so. That's also my experience of doing promo for NFL. Yeah, promo stuff is a lot tidier of sessions than you would normally see for like a video game or commercial.
When you're working with clients remotely, are they patching in? Assuming they are, what software
Mhm.
do you use to patch in? Zoom or IPTTL or Source Connect, or what do you use? And do they see you? Are they on camera and are you on camera?
Yeah, it's very rare that I'm working on camera with clients. IPDTL has gotten super popular. Uh, I probably use Source Connect for maybe 10% of my projects. Everything else is IPDTL. Um, Working with ESPN. we tend to do self-record on my end, and they just direct through Skype or Zoom, and I send it through to them via WeTransfer.
Okay. Greg, what about you? Are you working IPDTL? Are you working with clients remotely?
Um,
Or
th-
do a lot of your clients just send you a script and they know that you can do the job?
Mainly, I'm all self-directed. Occasionally, when I get a self-direct, when they want to direct, we'll use Zoom. I've done a few Source Connect sessions, but those are really pretty rare. But Zoom is the one that I use mostly when a client wants to direct me, and I just record here, and then I, take out the mistakes and the noise and all that kind of stuff, and send them the audio. And yeah, I use WeTransfer as well, and it works really, really well. It's a great service.
Greg, how many IVRs have you recorded approximately?
I a bunch. I got to looking at that, and if you assume, and this is like an average figure. Sometimes it's more, sometimes it's less. But if you figure I'm recording 200 prompts a month, and I've been working for them for I think 7 or 8 years, and then you multiply that by 12, it's like
Wow.
16 or 17,000 prompts. It's just it. I did the math and I was stunned.
Wow. That's amazing.
That is a lot. What percentage, Greg, what percentage of your work is a new client versus a client coming back and having some new prompts added or even prompts changed on their existing IVR?
It's about 50-50. The company I work with, they have me record spec demos and also record, for actual paying clients. And they pay one rate, a smaller rate for the spec demos, and then a larger rate for the ones that actually go into a system. And so I do, I do the specs, and sometimes they buy me, and sometimes they buy some other voice. And then the paying clients, they work out really well because every year you've got to record the we're closed for Labor Day and we'll reopen on September and whatever that number is, it changes every year. And so you get to do that, and you get to record the Christmas and New Year's greetings and Memorial Day and all those kinds of things. And so once you're in that particular industry for a while, you get a lot of built-in repeat business because they have to come back every year to get you to update the prompts for whatever the special occasion is. And of course, if they've got a sale going on, they'll have you record something for that, or they get a new product line, they'll have you record something for that. So yeah, it's worked out amazingly well. I when I first started, I thought, well, this isn't going to be a real big client. It's turned into my biggest client. So I'm real happy with them, and they're happy with
That's
me.
brilliant.
Yeah, that is great. Chris, actually, what's interesting, everyone, about these two voice actors is that their work, in some ways, is completely opposite of each other. Greg's work is ongoing. He records an IVR, and people hear that day after day after day. Probably, Greg, you have some clients who've kept some of these prompts for many years, whereas Chris, promos are a one time and that's it, right?
Yeah, I think like ideally you have an ongoing relationship with the channel. So like I'll and it tends to be direct offer after you're on the roster. So say I'll record something for NHL in January, then it's not abnormal for them to reach out end of March and want me to record something else, but it does have a more one-off feel. Yeah.
Okay. Let's see a bit more of your studio. Let's talk about your microphone, your preamps, your equipment. What DAW are you using? Walk us through all of that, Chris.
Yeah, so this is my Neumann TLM 103, and I have a Sennheiser MKH 416. Now I use the Sennheiser MKH 416, the shotgun mic, for promo stuff, trailer stuff, things that are tend to be more bassy, need more presence, mic presence to them. As you can see, I don't use the windsock on it. I have just the triple hook filter and a Stedman in front of it, so I can get tighter on the mic and get a more kind of unfettered sound on it. And then with the Neumann, because I also do video games and anime and such, it's really good for mid to high range projects or characters that have a large musical dynamic range or singing. So I use that for my character auditions. It's not uncommon that I'll switch back and forth between inputs throughout my audition day. And both of those feed into the Scarlett 18i8 G3 mixer here. I like this mixer because it has four inputs. It has a great digital control that I can control through my computer called Focusrite Control. And it also has two sets of headphones. So I use the two headphone jacks. One is for my Sony's, which I'll pull out here in a sec. Those give out, those are a really common studio headphone. I was finding that when I went to studios, if I didn't have experience recording on the Sonys, that I would kind of get a little bit thrown off because the primary headphones that are in jack 2 that I would listen to were on my Beyerdynamic DT 770 Pros.
Yep.
Uh, these are great because right, Greg, they're really good if you have a lower voice, especially. They're a very flattering headphone. They give a really good neutral response. They're a wonderful mixing headphone. They're fabulous. But I found that I would go to studios to record a game or anime or something, and I would get really thrown off because the Sony's response is so different. So I started really drilling these this past year and getting better at monitoring and self-correcting on the Sony's, even some mixing on it with double checking on the Beyerdynamics. And it had a really great effect on my comfortability in other people's studios. That makes sense?
It does. And Chris, I applaud you for that.
Thank you.
My gut says that most voice actors get comfortable with one pair of headphones and they stick with that. And I've often told voice actors that I think it's really helpful to train and to be able to self-direct with and without headphones even on, because sometimes you do find yourself in a situation when you can't wear headphones. For example, if you're brought into a studio, a commercial studio, and they don't give you headphones. And then
Totally.
sometimes it can throw you off if you don't have that feedback. So great idea to have multiple pairs of headphones. You know, engineers often travel from studio to studio with their own speakers because you get to know the sound of your speaker. And if you are
Mm,
mixing in a studio where you don't have your own speakers, you can be thrown off. So you've really taken the bull by the horn on that. That's terrific. Greg,
thank you.
what about you? What's your equipment? Tell us. Your DAW, your mic.
Okay.
Tell us.
The microphone is one you cannot buy anymore. Um,
Oh,
I bought it from a guy named Michael Jolly, and I think he was in Connecticut, if I remember right. And he was famous for taking microphones and modding them, much like you get the parts from microphoneparts.com, and making them into much better microphones. And so what mine is an old MXL V250, and he took it and put all new guts in it. And now, according to him, it sounds like a 70s era U87.
wow.
It's not bright like the U87AI. It's a little different, and so that's what I use as my primary mic. My secondary mic, which normally goes on that stand when I have it up there. Right now, it's just the holder for the iPad. Is a pure 440, and it's a real good mic, and it's stupid good for the price. It's like $265 or something like that. And so it's a really good mic too. And then I've got another mic over here that I bought as a travel mic, and I just use it for Zoom calls now. And that's the Audio Technica AT75R. And it works out really well. Like if I want to sit at the desk and do a Zoom call, it works really well for that. I do use Adobe Audition. You can see it right there. And then, of course, the Audient interface and the Mac computer and the preamp. But my system is real simple. It's just microphone to interface to computer, and I don't have any boxes or anything in between. It's very simple signal path.
That's great. And you know, to have that simple of a path
Hmm.
and 17,000 IVR prompts under your belt, that is terrific. Hey,
Thanks.
I just want to throw just a boost in for Greg because Greg does a lot more than just IVR. I feel like you've been humble on that. I just queued up a video a moment ago that I'll share with you. Just a moment of something that Greg recorded for us at Edge Studio. You should hear his voice. It's quite impressive. Chris, maybe we can get you to show something too. That might be fun. Maybe this is something we'll incorporate into future episodes of Home Studio Show and Tell. I'll only play about 15 or 20 seconds of it. I want to use most of our time up on your studios, and I'd love to get people asking questions. So far, no one has asked a question, but I'd love to But so let me say this differently. While I showcase just a couple of seconds of a video that Greg did the narration for, think about some questions that you'd love to ask to Chris or Greg, or topic of conversation, and post that in the chat, or after we watch this video, please feel welcome to speak up. I'm going to share my screen and show you just a moment of something that Greg recorded for us here.
The building, the roof, the seats is the structure. A shell. The grass, the pitch, is the surface. The canvas. The
Good stuff, huh?
Fantastic.
Thank you.
Sounds great.
Don't you think Greg's voice sounds like mine? Oh my goodness, I wish. Chris, are you up for playing something that you've recorded? Just a few seconds of it?
Yeah, let me see if I can pull in a YouTube here.
Okay, if you find something, I'll give you permission. I'll approve the permission to share screen. And let's get some questions coming. Greg, I'm not sure if you're following the chat, but someone's giving you a bunch of hand claps.
Oh,
Yeah.
thank you. Thank you. Thank you. Thank you.
We had Greg record 3 years. That video was done 3 years in a row by the Red Bulls, and he recorded all 3 of those.
I have a question.
Yes.
Do we have to have more than one mic as we're starting out?
No, no. In fact, most voice actors have one mic.
Okay. And do we have to be technically gifted? Because I'm not. And
No.
so do you adjust your own sound and your own tone? Do you edit your own voice?
I edit my
No.
mistakes out, but I don't. I will occasionally apply a little bit of EQ to my voice because in that little box that I record in, it tends to get too bassy and a little bit muddy. And so I'll filter out a little of the bass and peak up the presence just a little bit, but they're just very, very minor adjustments. But, you know, like I said, I spent 20 years in radio, so I know how to twiddle the knobs. If you're just beginning, there are people who can set up your system for you. And, you know, the other microphone that I've got that you didn't see in the picture, I got it mainly as a backup because, like I said, Jolly's out of business. And if that mic goes down, what do I do? So that's as a backup. And then, of course, the AT, the pencil mic that you saw, it's called a shotgun mic, but it looks like a great big pencil. I got that mainly for travel use. I haven't had a chance to travel with it yet, but its sound is pretty similar to my Jolly mic that I use every day. So no, you don't need to have multiple mics. What Chris has got is his long skinny mic, his Sennheiser 416. That's really suited for promo work because it's a real in your face kind of sound. Whereas the 103 is more general purpose.
103. Is that the now we heard of a Pure 440. Pure 440. What's the 103?
This would be this Neumann TLM 103 that we have right here on the screen. It's it's a Neumann mic. It's a large diaphragm condenser mic.
Neumann, N-O-Y-M-A-N.
Oh, sorry. Yeah, that's the German pronunciation.
Yeah,
N-E-U-M-A-N.
Yes, this is a popular brand of microphones. Very popular.
Break out your wallet.
Yeah.
Oh, so that's more expensive
You know,
than the Pure 440?
Right. And the Pure
Yeah, when you-
440, I'm sorry, the Pure 440 is made by Lewitt, Lewitt. And it's I mean, for the money, it's a really good microphone.
Okay, it's good for someone just starting out.
Oh, absolutely. Yeah, you could live with that for years.
David, I would also add in one thing, and if you are starting out and you're not technical, you may be better off going with don't get mad everyone, a USB microphone. Some of the USB microphones are really good. Like, you know, almost everything in our worlds have switched to digital. We mostly use digital cameras these days. We're all switching slowly to digital car or electronic cars, e-cars, right? Microphones will follow. And there are some USB microphones which are really rather good. I use one in my office. Now, to the woman who's asking this question, I'm not a voice actor, but I Zoom all day. And right now I'm not on that microphone. I'm broadcasting from a hotel room where I'm traveling. So my sound is off right now. And I'm quite concerned about the sound quality where I am. I was telling Chris and Greg at the beginning of this call that I've surrounded my computer with pillows and all sorts of things to dampen the echo as
That's
best as I
okay.
can. But the microphone I use in my home office is a $110 microphone by a company called Audio Technica. And the microphone seems really good. And both of my sons narrate audiobooks,
No.
and we use that microphone and it works great. So there are lots of choices. I want to get back to Chris and Greg for a moment. Chris, you sent a link to something that you've recorded. So I'll play that. I just will ask, just to make sure, if it is a segment from a video game, I need to make sure there's no profanity in the.
Yeah, good question. It's ad for Visa from the Olympics last year, so it's very
Okay.
clean, squeaky clean. Thank you for asking though.
Okay. Let me share my screen here. Yeah, we have to ask. We had a job in well, okay, bit of pretext. Uh, at Edge Studio, we've now recorded, I think, in 141 different languages sorry, 121 languages over the years. We had a language come up when a client needed a certain language. I don't speak, and no one in my office, my company speaks 121 languages. So we needed a demo for a certain language. We found a voice actor in New York City who was a voice actor who spoke that language. We sent the demo to our client. The client was so upset. We didn't know why. It ends up that the voice actor had swore up and down that demo. It was part of a video game or something with lots of strong swearing. We lost the
Oh,
client as a result. So now I always ask, I always make sure all of you should learn from my mistakes, please. Okay, let me share my screen.
What do you do with the new do when you are one of the fastest men alive? You speed test it. And then earn 2% cash back on the purchase with the Wells Fargo Active Cash Visa credit card. When the man that breaks records shops for records, he speed tests them. Because living his 2% in a life means every look needs to be fast.
Very nice, Chris. It's great.
thank you.
Terrific stuff. Let's get back to some studios.
David, may
There's
I
a lot
ask
of
a question?
questions.
David,
Yes.
may I ask you a question? This is Bob. I'm on a phone, so I can't really control a lot of things here. It's kind of a two-parter. I had an audition session with you, and you were talking about things bouncing off my ceiling, and so I'm getting ready to clip some soft material on the ceiling. My question is for Chris, though. It looks like he has a lot of hard surfaces in the front of him, the TV monitors and everything. So is that at any point become a problem?
Yeah, that's a great question. I think that for me, I think it's a percentages game. I kind of go off of like looking to cover 70% of the hard surfaces as a rough estimate for my padding. And I really compensate for it. I'll reverse the camera here with my padding behind my head, right? It's
Yeah.
4 inches thick, fiberglass, and then I have a set of 3 different bass traps beneath a kind of thin shelf that I have above me. Again, it's like clearly a very converted closet. It's not an issue. I think if we're looking at the standing waves, it's not an issue for me rather. If we're looking at like the standing waves, so the sound that goes in front and behind me, the
Yeah.
sound that goes vertically, the sound that goes side to side. Uh, Potential bounce, I'll reverse my camera again. Potential bounce off of this curved screen could go
Okay.
up, right? And I really treated every nook and cranny of the ceiling and the corners. And so I think a lot of bounces going up there and getting eaten up by there, and the
Yeah.
knickknacks also break it up further. So I think just for me, being mindful of the vertical and the beneath the obstruction has really helped me navigate
Yeah.
my acoustics. But I've never had any issues in the studio.
Okay. I'm because I was more looking at the monitors that you
Uh-huh.
have in front, and so those are pretty. Those would be really bouncy.
Yeah, they're bouncy, but then I think about where they're bouncing and the areas
Okay.
that they're bouncing to. That's where I'm really focusing on the treatment more so than avoiding the bounce.
Okay. Okay. Great. Thanks a lot for taking my question. I appreciate
Yeah,
it.
great question.
Bob,
Great question.
yeah, it is a good question. Bob, you may be talking about flutter echo, which is when sound will bounce back and forth between two surfaces.
Okay.
That's really what reverb is, right? By definition, reverb or reverberation is very fast echo. When the echoes are so fast that your ears cannot distinguish between the repeats, we call it reverberation. So if Chris had two hard walls, let's say the ceiling and the floor, and both had hard surface on them, then the sound could go up and down, up and down, up and down, and bounce back and forth. That's when we get that flutter echo, that reverb.
Okay.
And that's the issue. So in some studios, only every other wall, so to speak, is padded. But yeah, 70%, typically I would say 80% of coverage is ideal. And you're right. There are studios where voice actors get bounced off of the monitor. Some of it also depends on the position of you and the position of the microphone and the kind
Yeah.
of microphone you're using. If you're using a very directional microphone, then you're getting, sorry, if you're not using a directional microphone, an omni microphone, for example, then you're getting picked up from all different areas of your room. Whereas if you're on a very directional microphone, it's picking up you and just you for the most part.
Yeah, I use a 416, so it's definitely very directional. So so I'm trying to avoid that. But every so often, I'm like, I have these hard surfaces in front of me. Is this any good? But the tip for the ceiling, I never really paid attention until you said this, and then I went in the booth the other day, and I'm like, I can hear the bounce off the ceiling. So thank you very much for that. I appreciate it.
For
Yeah,
sure.
and if you hang moving blankets on the ceiling, it is best to have them droop. You want the blankets to kind of do like a
Right.
big droopy, just by using nails in strategic spots, let the blankets kind of droop down like waves
Yeah,
on your ceiling. That works a lot better.
yeah. I have a really large beach towel, and what I kind of built was it's almost like all shower curtain rods in this spot, so I can just attach it to the rods. I'm sure it'll work just fine.
A beach towel is pretty thin. I'd be a little suspect or concerned about that. What you could do
Okay.
is take that beach towel and stuff some foam on top of it,
Yeah,
or double up
Yeah.
the beach towels or
yeah.
something. But one beach towel by itself is not that thick.
Okay. The rest of my walls is mostly moving furnitures pads.
Okay.
So eventually I'll upgrade.
Well, Greg, let's see your ceiling.
I'm sorry.
Let's see the ceiling of your booth.
Okay, sure.
Can we go inside your booth?
Yeah. What we have here is I originally had Sonex foam on frames inside the booth because I bought what at the time was the top of the line booth that you could get and recorded in it for the very first time, and the thing rang like a bell. And the reason is that it all came walls covered with this 2-inch pyramid foam, which is not very good. And so I started with some of this Sonex or Sonex foam on the walls, and then later I made my own. You see these panels here. They're floor to ceiling panels. They're 4 inches of Roxel, and I don't think you can tell, but I even cut out some little holes in the sides so the sound could get in the sides as well. But up on the ceiling, I've got the foam, and it did make a difference. I also stuffed some of the old foam in the corners to try to act as a bass trap, and there's some up right above the door. So that's how I treated my ceiling. Oddly enough, if you'll notice, my floor is not carpeted. And I got that idea. There's a guy who builds studios for a living. His name is John Brandt, and I used to have carpet in there. And I was talking to him, and I was concerned that my audio sounded a little muddy. And he said, "Take the carpet off the floor." Because David, you've recorded musicians, and of course, you don't have carpet all over everything in a recording studio. And so I took his advice, and by golly, it does sound better with a hard floor. Part of the reason for that, at least in my environment, is the human ear is used to hearing sound bouncing up off the floor. And so that's what I did. A couple of other tricks I've got in here, as long as I've got the camera. I don't know if you can tell it or not, but you see where I've got my my stool. If you can see, there's little blue painter's tape there. And also there's blue painter's tape on the floor where the microphone stands go. And the reason for that is occasionally these things get bumped or moved. And when you're working in a really small space like mine, an inch or two makes a world of difference. And so I have that tape down there. And the other thing that's kind of unusual, you see the microphone stand on the right and those blue things on the bottom. Those are ankle weights I stole from my granddaughter. Actually, I didn't steal them. She said that she didn't need them anymore. But the microphone I was using on here on that stand is kind of heavy. And when you stick it way out on the end of that boom, it's kind of like tying a brick to the end of a fly rod. And the microphone stand wants to fall over, and that's not a good thing. So I just added some extra weight down there, and that took care of that problem.
Brilliant.
That's great, Greg. That's great. Greg, what's so cool is that so many of your clients have you come back and re-record prompts, right? You said year after year for Labor
Right,
Day sales,
right.
and so having that consistent sound is really helpful.
Yeah, and also I get clients who, well, like just last month, I had a client I recorded 4 commercials for them, and they wanted to change one line in one commercial. And when you've got everything nailed down, where you know where everything goes on the floor, and you know the hand distance away from the microphone that you work at, it's real easy to go in and do a pickup and stick it back in, and it doesn't sound like it was edited in. It sounds like it was part of the original recording. I listen to a lot of audiobooks, and I can tell when somebody's come back for a pickup because most of the times it's like the audio quality changes somehow, or you can tell they go from chapter 3 to chapter 4, and the voice changes between chapter 3 and chapter 4 because they recorded on different days. And so I'm kind of a fanatic about when I do pickups. I don't want anybody to know that there's been a change made.
Yeah. A very interesting story, everyone. This came up in conversation yesterday. 5 years ago or 6 years ago, when the world closed down for the lockdown of COVID, we closed our studio. We were mandated in New York City. We had to close our studio. And we have 5 studios, and all 5 rooms were in the middle of long projects. A lot of our projects are long, very long e-learning projects that sometimes take months to record. Audio books, which are on average about 10 and a half hours long. Fiction is on average 10 and a half hours. So now, one day we have to shut down, and we're in the middle of all of these projects. So now we need to pick up and have the voice actors record from their home studio. But of course, and then some of you probably know what I'm about to say, the sound quality was vastly different. And a lot of the voice actors who we were bringing into our studio, into our commercial studio, their home studios were not good quality. Our studios are really good quality. So now a voice actor would be in the middle of a book, and up to some point in the book, it's recorded at our space. It sounds great. And then the rest of it sounds really bad. Like, so what do you do? So we had to deal with the clients, and the clients were all saying, well, it's not our fault. We're paying you, Edge Studio. We're paying the studio to record an audiobook, and you have to deliver it. And so we're thinking, so now we have to go back and re-record the first half of a dozen or 20 books that we're in the middle of. Like, who has that cost responsibility? The voice actor should be paid again. So it was crazy when that happened. So yeah, we ended up outfitting a lot of voice actor studios by sending them our microphones, or we bought more microphones, the same kind that we typically used in our studios. Would mail them to the voice actors like as a loaner, a rental thing, and then we'd help them outfit their studio with foam and do the best we could to kind of get their studio up and running. It was quite a challenging time, to say the least. Chris, your projects, how often do you go back into a project to re-record? Or do you take on long projects to your video games? For example, you mentioned you were in the booth 3 hours the other day. Is that common, or do you ever have studio projects that go multiple days, or an audiobook even that goes multiple days?
So the game that I'm working on right now, that I worked on more yesterday, we started in the fall, and I'm contracted till this fall to be kind of on retainer for the game. So I'll be going in and out for this game. That's kind of unusual. Usually most games I work on are 1-day affairs. Um, with pickups, some promo stuff. So I also am the voice of the city concert series with Today's Show. I've done that for the last couple of years, and sometimes Today's Show will come in needing a fix or a tweak, or someone drops out and they have to put a new talent in, and I need to intro that new talent. So those pickups are really like, they need like a 15-minute turnaround, 10-minute turnaround. So that's like a very time sensitive pickup environment. But those are really the only pickup sort of environments that I find myself in these days. A lot of stuff is kind of one and done.
Chris, what do you do if you travel?
Good question. I bring my Cinco D2 and I bring, excuse me, the iRig interface. So it's just big enough for the XLR to go in and a micro USB to come out. And I connect that to my MSI GS65 laptop, which was my primary recording computer for about 9 of the 11 years that I've been in business. Or a laptop was that laptop was a 5-6 years, and before that was another laptop. So I just moved to a desktop computer, but yeah, I use that as my travel rig, and I bring the Sonys with me.
Hey, Chris, I had a question for you about that Cinco.
Yeah.
How does it compare to the 416? I've heard some people say you can't tell the difference, and I've heard other people say they aren't anywhere close. So,
Yeah, I wish I was in the first camp. I find myself more in the second camp. I feel like it has a little bit of a flatter response. It's not as generous with proximity effect on the bassiness. If you make up on the back end with you know, an effects rack or EQ, I think you can kind of dupe it. There's a really good mic shootout between the two on Booth Junkie's page, between the Cinco and the MKH 416.
right.
I do find it's a bit of a flatter response, and a little less generous than the 416 in my experience.
Okay.
Yeah.
Might be interesting to check on B&H. For those of you who don't know, B&H is a very large music retailer. They're based in New York City, and they did a mic shootout of 68 mics. And you can hear those mics and 66 other mics all there with the specs and everything that came from that mic shootout. That was a great project. They brought their 68 mics into our studio. Our Studio B has really an interesting and great sound. And they rented the studio for 3 days with 3 voice actors
Cool.
who just read the
Wow.
same line 68 times.
That's
And they
amazing.
recorded it, the same voice actors saying the same line 68 times. Weird gig for the voice actors, but they were still excited. And now they're all up and down B&H's website. And so you could look at those specs, and that's really interesting to hear. Very interesting.
Yeah, and didn't B&H used to let you try out the mics on the floor too?
Yeah, I had a conversation with someone about this just a few days ago. They do, and maybe they still do, I'm not sure, but they at least used to. But it's not that meaningful because the environment is loud.
Mm,
It's not like you're in your own studio. And unless you have trained ears, it's really hard to know what to listen for. You're
right.
listening on different headphones. Well, maybe you can bring your own headphones. You're listening through their mic and their preamp. So it's not, I don't know, it might be somewhat helpful. I would say it's one data point when selecting a microphone, but I would not base everything upon that. The store itself is great though, and their staff is great. So is Sweetwater. Sweetwater is a
Yeah.
large music retailer
Oh,
also.
yeah. Oh,
They will
yeah.
send you 5 mics or so, and you get to pick one and send the other 4 back and only pay for the one. I mean, it is for those of you who are new in voiceover, it is important to find the microphone that works for you. And I will just say, when you're new to voiceover and you ask the question to experienced voice actors, what microphone is best? Lots of people are going to suggest the microphone that works for them. But what works for one person does not necessarily work for you. It is just like clothing. I could say, I wear this brand in this size, it works for me, but that doesn't mean that this brand and my size clothes will work for you. You have to figure out what works for your voice. How your voice reacts to certain microphones is important. The acoustics of your room are very telling on or necessary to take into consideration when selecting a microphone. The genre you record. There are a bunch of factors to take into consideration. Listen, we have only, my goodness, 7 minutes left. I want to look through some questions and get some stuff from Greg and Chris here. My goodness. Okay. Someone said, "Hey, Chris, love your setup. Have you always used the 2 mics referenced tonight, or found through trial and error the mic you now use primarily for video games and anime?"
Yeah, good
Oh, that's from
question.
Eric. Hey, Eric.
So my business really turned a corner. I think, like you described, a lot. 2020 really changed the industry, really changed the expectation. And I think one of the codifying factors I started seeing on different character acting, anime, video game castings, a requirement was, I think they described it as like a TLM 103 or higher was the kind of verbiage at the time. So this is like 2020, 2021. And so when I started seeing that more and more, I was doing well on the Sennheiser. I'd done some character projects on it, but I wanted to stay competitive. And so kind of in the interest of and to invest in that corner of my business, I bought the TLM 103 back in 2021. But I'd been doing I originally used the I have it ceremonially in the Chaotica eyeball, the very first one, the blue baby bottle. It's in my museum above my head. So I used that for my first like kind of 4 or 5 years, and then I upgraded to the MKH in year 5, let's say. And I've been rocking with that since year 11, and the TLM is about 4 years old. So that's kind of was my progression.
Thanks, Chris. That's really great.
Of course. Thanks for the question.
Love it. Love it. Love it. This has really been very informative.
And,
Great.
and what
asked.
Yeah, what David
Sorry.
said about microphones is very true. I've done 2 sessions in different studios on a TLM 103, and neither one of them sounded good on my voice, at least not as good as the microphone I use here at home. So like you said, every voice, every recording environment is different. So you just can't, rubber stamp everything and say use microphone A, because it doesn't always work for you.
I worked earlier today with someone who's getting into audiobook narration. And they have a very noisy room where they are. No, I won't say very noisy, but there's enough ambience that they need a shotgun microphone.
Mm-hmm.
But this woman is very animated when she reads. She's all over the place when she reads. So
I love it.
that it won't work because she's on a shotgun microphone, which you can't move.
Right.
It's not that forgiving. And that's just another consideration you need to take into consideration when selecting a microphone. There are to purchase the right microphone for you, there are a bunch of factors you need to think about. Someone asked the question, Dion asked, I have the 103, but can't use it because it picks up too much ambient sound and mouth noise. Sometimes a very good microphone is not good because it's so good, it picks up more noise that you don't want. If you're in a room that has some echoes or people above you living on a floor above you or people outside or trucks going by, sometimes a lower quality directional microphone may actually be better. Time and place for everything.
Yeah, I joke that the 103 is so sensitive it picks up the sound of paint drying.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I've heard that people hear their organs.
Yeah. It'll pick up your tummy rumbles.
Yeah, our booths are so quiet. Our booths in Edge Studio that we hear the stomach rumbles.
Yeah.
And all sorts of things like that. Hiccups and mouth noise. Someone wrote a couple of questions here. Are either of you familiar with a Roswell K87?
I've heard of it, and I've heard good things about it, but I've never used it.
Chris?
Yeah, I know that Roswell's a good imprint, but I'm not 100% sure or familiar with it. No. Anyone
out there? Can anyone talk about the Roswell? Okay, well, maybe someone will come forth with that. Someone wrote, I got my AKG P120 mic, mixer, and a CAD audio interface at a local pawn shop for $75. Not a bad price.
Cool.
Yeah.
Wonder what the story is there.
Yeah. Sweetwater is where I got mine. Okay, I want to find some questions. As I'm looking through the chat, I'm not seeing questions as much as more statements.
Yeah.
I have a question. Yes. The Technica mic that you mentioned, is it directional?
Yeah, the Audio Technica mic, the AT875R, it is a directional microphone. And I think it's about $175. And
we don't want a directional one, right?
Well, it depends. How much background noise do you have in your recording studio?
Well, I'm going to have a recording tent because I can't set up my studio. My boyfriend will not allow that because that's the only room we have. So I have to get this tent and work around a desk and put the tent up and down when I need it. And I was going to ask you if those tents are effective or acceptable. I see them on Amazon. And you can get various sizes.
Yeah, they're good for taking down the echo, and the reverb that you might hear in your microphone. but they're
Mhm.
not very good at keeping out outside noise like traffic
Mhm.
or the refrigerator running or whatever you've got.
Or air conditioning
Yeah,
compressors.
yeah.
Yeah.
Okay. Okay. So if I were to work at night when there's no traffic with no
Mhm.
air conditioner, because I have no choice, I have to start this way. I
Well, that's
can't.
fine.
Yeah,
Do you
we
have a
all did.
closet? Do you have
Yeah,
a
Yeah.
We
lots
all
of
did.
lots of people started with tents. Absolutely.
Yeah. My New York
And so,
booth was a desk that straddled a radiator that was active. Uh,
Oh no. Oh, that's wild.
yeah, like I know people who record in their car, and
Oh,
that's
Mhm.
in many ways that's good. With one piece of foam up over the windshield, it's pretty good sound, right?
Hmm.
Because it's
Yeah.
insulated. Oh, and this guy also, it was a minivan. This is a funny story, and it's quick. He said that his kids had moved out of the house. The husband and wife were left with the minivan in the garage. The wife said, "Let's finally get rid of the minivan." He said, "No, let's keep it in the garage." And that became the studio. So now it's a van which is
Cool.
insulated inside the garage. So it's like double walled studio.
oh, that's
The
wild.
minivan is all big plush chairs and carpeted ceiling and carpeted floor with one piece
Mhm.
of foam on the windshield. He had probably 95% coverage, and that became his studio.
Wow.
You
Wow.
make it
That's
work, right? You make
interesting.
it work wherever you are. So
Okay, thank you.
remember that there are two sound sources you need to control. There's sound absorption of just of the ambience, the echo,
Mhm.
and there's sound proofing, which is getting rid of unwanted sounds from outside and upstairs and HVAC and so on. So yes, as Greg said, that tent would be great at the ambience, at the absorption of echo, but it won't stop the other sounds. So if you find a time to record that's quiet, then that can work. I think
Mhm.
some of the tents, just when you purchase a tent, my
Mhm.
feedback is, my concern is that you purchase one that you can get a laptop in or a screen of some sort, so you're not hunched over. Because if you're hunched over under a tent, if it's uncomfortable, I don't think you can
It's
be as
gonna be
expressive with your
reflected.
voice.
Yes,
Yeah, or you'll
yes.
have chiropractic bills
Yeah.
and stuff to pay. So,
Yes, thank you. Thank you. That's very
okay,
valid.
we have reached the hour mark, so we're going to call it. I want to give a huge thanks to both Chris and Greg. They've donated their time tonight to walk us through their studio, to answer questions. You guys both rock. Love your voices. Great things to offer. I'm glad we did the three-way conversation. I'm glad a bunch of you spoke up. Very fun. This will be posted on our website probably within 2 or 3 business days. And yeah, everyone, thank you so much for joining Edge Studio on our home
Thank
studio
you. It
show
was
and tell.
wonderful. Thank you so much.
Okay.
It's great.
Bye,
Thank
everyone.
you.
Greg
Bye.
and Chris, I'll
Good
email
night.
you both.
Absolutely.
Sounds great. Thank you so much. So great to meet you, Greg.
Nice to meet you too, Chris.